Spoiler Sleepover is sponsored by Vegan Curious, a one-woman owned and operated bakery that's out of this world.
Vegan Curious offers baked goods so delicious even meat eaters from Mars won't know they are cruelty-free. Vegan Curious is based out of Kitchen Local in Amesbury, Mass.
For all inquiries and information, go to vegancuriouskitchen.com and follow Vegan Curious on Instagram and Facebook.
Greetings, ladies, gents, and our non-binary friends. Welcome to Spoiler Sleepover, part of the Nerdcat Network. Join your hosts, Jason, Michael, and Rob, as they bring you on a slash-tastic adventure through cinema. Now, enjoy the show. It'll be a real scream of a time.
A very musical introduction to this week's episode. Welcome, everybody, back to Spoiler Sleepover. I'm Jason Michael.
I'm Rob.
And this week we are staying in the realm of the old silver screen movies. We're going back to 1931 once again. A few months down the road from our last 1931 classic of Dracula, we're going to November 21st for James Whale's Frankenstein. But of course... It sounded more the Mummy than anything. Before we get to that, Robert. I didn't like that.
Yes?
Now you get first named. What's been keeping you up at night?
So I've had a bit of a packed week in what I've been watching. Starting off with Aquaman, The Lost Kingdom. That was fun. I enjoyed it, except for the fact that Amber Turd was dropping a deuce all over it. Other than that, it was a fun movie. It's an Aquaman movie. It's hard to hate on Momoa. I love Momoa. He's so much fun. Season 2 of Royal Crackers is on Max, and I'm loving it. Literally, right before we sat down to record, I watched another episode, and it is as sane as Season 1 and just a lot of fun. So if you haven't watched Royal Crackers, it's worth the watch. It's funny. If you like ridiculous over-the-top animation that Adult Swim does, it's worth the watch. It's funny. I watched the entirety of Echo, the Marvel show, on Disney Plus, and it was really good. It ties in with Daredevil, so if you haven't watched the Netflix Daredevil show, you might be a little in the dark, but for the most part, it doesn't really feed into Daredevil, aside from the fact that Kingpin's in it and Daredevil's in it for a single scene. Echo was a lot of fun. It's only 6 episodes. The first 5 episodes are like 42 to 46 minutes long, and then the final episode's like 36 minutes long. It's a short episode, but it was good. I was pleasantly surprised. I just figured I'd seen that it had come out. I was like, yeah, I'm good. And then I saw like a teaser for it, and I was like, hold up, Kingpin's in this? And then they said Daredevil, and I'm like, all right, shit, now I have to watch it. And I'm glad I did. It was really good. My last 2 things. If you haven't, on Shudder, there are 3 Japanese horror movies from the 60s on there, all written and directed by the same guy. I'm not even going to try and say his name because I don't want to slaughter it. But I watched the first one of them called 100 Monsters, and it is amazing. All 3 movies are like, it's Japan's attempt at like their own Universal Monsters in a sense, but it takes all of the yokai, like the Japanese legends of ghosts, and puts them into a real world situation. And some of them are horrifying because it's made in the 60s. So it's Suits. It was nuts.
I could be about this.
It was good. I had a lot of fun with it. It's subtitled. Obviously, it's Japanese. But I plan on watching the other 2 because I had a good time watching the first one. And then my last one is one of my favorite comedians from when I was a young lad, middle school, high school. He had a TV show, late night on Comedy Central. He did awesome stand-up. I loved his shit. Disappeared off the face of the planet. Just came back on Netflix with a special after God knows how long. Dave Attell has a comedy special on Netflix. Fuck Netflix. But it's so good. It's called Hot Cross Buns. I want to tell you why it's called the Hot Cross Buns so bad. But all I'm going to say is, if you like Dave Attell, if you like his humor, go watch it. It is the most unhinged, ridiculous shit I've ever seen in my life when it comes down to stand-up. It's totally worth the watch. I had so much fun with it. Like I had to take my glasses off because I was laughing so hard I was crying, and then my glasses started steaming up. It was amazing. I love David Tell. I'm so glad he's back. But yeah, that's what's been keeping me up. Jason Michael, what's been keeping you up at night?
So I have been mostly catching up on things that I've put down for a while. I, of course, also was continuing my run through, which now at this point is a monthly thing, of Metalocalypse. I've been catching up on Banshee. I did like a whole day's worth of a season in Banshee and went from like the last 2 episodes of season 1 to all of a sudden I'm on like season 3, episode 3. Just a day was spent watching Banshee. Don't know what else happened. Honestly, that day's a blur. Don't know what happened. I'm here all of a sudden. We're okay. But cannot wait for The Boys season 4 because Anthony Starr is Homelander in The Boys and as well as Lucas Hood in Banshee, and he is tremendous in anything he does.
Speaking of The Boys in The Boys universe, we need to take a pause in the middle of your
yes, we do.
Night.
Yep, we do. I saw this the other night.
Yeah, Chance Perdomo, who was on Gen X and The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, unfortunately passed away in a motorcycle accident. Actually,
27.
This week. Yeah, he's 27 years old. We don't have to say the week of this recording. That's happened this week. I got that news while I was at work and straight up had to like take a break. Like I had to go outside. That hurt, especially because they had announced they're doing another season of Sabrina. They haven't started shooting or anything yet, and I have a feeling because of this, it's going to get canned. So
yep.
It's sad news, but I'm sorry to interrupt your what's been keeping us up at night, but
no, completely understandable. Because like I saw that and went, "Fuck, dude." Because like, yeah, his character, he did great as his character, and there were times absolutely where you did not like his character in Gen V. But then there were times where it's like, you know what? Fuck yeah, we're rooting for this guy. But the fact of it's like, dude, 27. That's way too young. So from us at Spoiler Sleepover, our thoughts and prayers go out to his family because that is horrible. That's just a horrendous shock that nobody should ever feel. Bringing it back, however, no, you're good. Like as soon as you started, I was like, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah. Also been finally, after leaving it on the ground for forever, picking up Reacher season 2 again. I am officially halfway through. I feel like this is the season I'm never gonna fucking finish, but I have to. And something more up to date and prevalent, your boy went to a theater just because he decided to, and went to go see GXK, Godzilla x Kong: A New Empire. Now, Rob has not seen it. I know there's probably not many spoilers for a giant kaiju battle, but I'm not going to give any anyway. All I have to say is, fuck yeah. Originally when I watched Godzilla vs. Kong, I wasn't a fan of it because there was a lot of human shit. Now, I understand it for the sake of the child who communicates with Kong. Great. Fantastic. I watched it before going to see it, and I skipped past everything of Millie Bobby Brown, the kid from Deadpool 2, and the podcast guy. I skipped all their shit because, yes, they get you to Mechagodzilla, but god damn it. The human parts in these movies need to be cut down. That's all I have to say. We came to see giant monster kaiju fight. We don't entirely need all these human scenes. Yes, is there plot progression? Absolutely. But that being said, I feel like GXK was more monster-driven, and I'm so here for it, because it was great. It's already got another one on the way. It grossed $80 million its first weekend, and I think totally was like over $120 million. And the next one, this one was more Kong. The next one's going to be Godzilla. Here for it. But both are still in this movie and fucking fantastic. Oh my god. All right, GXK: A New Empire. If you haven't seen it, please go see it. But that's what has been keeping us up at night. Please let us know what's been keeping you up at night. If you have seen GXK, please send us a message. I will respond. Title it with GXK, so that way Rob doesn't read it and read anything about the movie. But I will see it. I will talk with you about it. And let's talk about monster movies, baby. Love it. But before we get to that, it's not in my ear. Haha, I don't want it. I'm wearing headphones, motherfucker. Something's crawling out of your ear, and it's an earworm. Wiki wiki woo.
Okay, that was enough of that. That was me pulling the earworms out.
Waloo!
I've had a very interesting, actually, few weeks of listening. I've been going on a 90s grunge kick, and specifically keep going back to the same album. So recently I've been listening to Stone Temple Pilots' Core a whole lot, and I always loved the album. I haven't really been going back to the grunge stuff all that often recently. Like, I was a grunge kid, I was a grunge teen, Stone Temple Pilots are the cat's pajamas. I really dug their music and apparently still do. So if you're feeling 90s and you want to go listen to some grunge, I highly, highly recommend Core by Stone Temple Pilots. It's a delicious album. But yeah, that's about it for me. What's crawling out of your ear?
Well, I'll tell you, it's not really going to mean a lot to a lot of people. I mean, you can put it together if you want to, but it's been a personal playlist of mine is, quote, songs that I can drum to, question mark, unquote. Because I have an electronic kit in the corner of my room, and I've got a very specific set playlist of like songs that I go, maybe I could play along to that, and I add them to the playlist just to try it. Doesn't mean I'm good at drums, doesn't mean I'm perfect at drums, doesn't mean I can actually play these songs correctly, but I've been really just tackling a few specific songs just because it's been fun and just for shits and gigs. I have been, of course, as if you know me, playing Hail to the King by Avenged Sevenfold constantly. Rob, I know your reaction to this. I've been playing Spillways by Ghost. So, I know, Ghost. Yeah, there it is. But I will say the song is catchy, and I do like to play it on the drums. Also by Trivium, and I don't have a double kick pedal, but I mean, if I do, maybe I could do it, from their Sin of the Sentence album, Drowning in the Sound. Drowning in the Sound was actually one of the singles that came out after that album, but in like that era. But that album is a punch in the face for the entire time, and I'm all about it. I figured out how to play this song, and I think I'm like so close to nailing it, I just have to actually do it in time. You ever seen Peacemaker?
Like the band?
No. I mean John Cena's superhero from James Gunn's Suicide Squad that got his own HBO show.
Oh, yeah.
You know, the opening track to that is Do You Want to Taste It by Wigwam. What a fucking badass song, dude. It's also hilarious, just the intro of the show, but like those are the songs I've been listening to because I've just been playing a shit ton of drums, and I love it.
Those have been our earworms for the week. Hit us up on any of our socials. Let us know what you've been listening to. Give us some music suggestions. We're always looking for new music. We've both got some concerts coming up too, so let us know if you're going to any of the shows we're going. Tell us what shows you are going to. We'll see you there. That'd be cool. We're in New England, so yeah, buddy. But before we jump into this amazing feature, easily within my top of the favorites for the Universal Monster Universe, I've got a little Creeping It Real for y'all. So, Jason Michael.
Hello!
So they announced very soon after the end of Season 1 of the most recent Goosebumps series that they were moving forward with Season 2. And I'm excited because that show was fantastic. Absolutely amazing. I love Justin Long, and it's open-ended at the end. So I was like, great, we're going to get more Justin Long. And then the news hit. Very recently, actually, I believe like mid last week, if I'm being...
Oh, no.
Season 2 is happening.
Okay.
With a
Justin
new
Long's
lead.
not in it. Fuck!
Are you ready for the new lead that nobody wants and nobody asked
Wait,
for?
can I guess?
You're never going to get it, but go for it.
It's not Tom Cruise, is it?
God, no. No.
Okay, cool.
No,
it might be palatable. Go on.
It won't be. It's the saddest human drum roll ever. It's David Schwimmer.
Why?
Who was sitting in a boardroom and just went, you know what Goosebumps needs? Ross from Friends. Nobody. David Schwimmer. Goosebumps. Hate it. Don't want it. The only way that it's going to sell me to actually be excited to watch it is if they go, Justin Long's still attached. He's still in this. Then I'll be like, all
And
right,
he
cool,
kills
we're good.
David
Let's do
Schwimmer.
this. That'd be amazing.
Jesus.
Yeah. So that's what's creeping it really, really real. Unfortunately, way too real.
That's funny.
That's the end of that. The only other thing I would like to say is Bambi the Reckoning trailer dropped, or teaser dropped today, so go watch it, because I know what we're doing after this.
I knew there was a way to keep it in there for you. All right.
Bambi the Reckoning!
Now that we have gone through our normal openings, Rob, we are going back in time once more to 1931. We are going to be talking about the ever-popular, just dropped my notes, the ever-wonderful Frankenstein from 1931. I picked up my notes.
Frankenstein, you see.
So, Rob, I understand you have a question before we get going.
Yeah, so I've seen this movie a lot, many, many times over my 30 years of life.
That's at least twice.
Yep, at least twice to 20, 35 times. So the opening credits always confuse me a little bit.
Okay.
I like it. Visually, it's really cool. So there's a bunch of swirling eyeballs and an askewed face that slowly moves into frame until it disappears.
Okay.
You're the expert.
Uh-oh.
What's the fucking face? Why is it there? Who's it supposed to be? And why does it look like Dracula? Yeah, it's got pointy ears and a pointy nose.
Oh, yeah, look at that. It does look very Nosferatu.
Yeah, I've always seen that and I've been like, look, it's Dracula. But why? This is Frankenstein, not Dracula.
Maybe because, I mean, it also could be because, I was going to mention this later when we actually see the monster. All of the makeup for this movie was kept a secret from the press. Nobody knew what the monster looked like. Like in promotional pictures, the monster's face would be blacked out with a question mark over it. They'd walk him around in like a bag over his head, literally like a burlap sack over Boris Karloff's head, just keeping him secret from everything. So nobody knew until the moment he walked on screen, except for Jack Pierce and Boris, what he looked like.
That's pretty cool. Which answers a question I have later. So I won't even ask it now.
I think I know what it'll be. But anyway,
Yeah.
before the actual opening credits, we get a little walkout scene of Edward Van Sloan from our episode 2 weeks ago in Dracula. We have Edward Van Sloan walking out and doing a little, how do you do? Mr. Carl Lemley, who was the head guy at Universal at the moment, was like, will seem a little unkind to present this picture without a little word of warning. And just goes on about, this is what's going to happen. It's going to be presented about life and death. There's going to be a bunch of spooky shit. It will shock you. It will horrify you. So if any of you choose to not subject your nerves to such a strain, well, now's your chance to. We warned you. And just walks out. And it's like, what the fuck am I about to watch? If I remember correctly, it was for this movie, there was another promotional thing where there was somebody who would go into the theater and they'd have an ambulance parked outside with a couple nurses, air quotes, and somebody would go into the theater and just scream and pass out, and then they'd be carried out in a gurney by the nurses and put into the ambulance. And they're pretty sure it was a bit of promotional stuff, but I mean, from other stories that I'm hearing about this, like as soon as you see the makeup and people hiding under seats, screaming in the theater, passing out. I mean, it happened not too long ago with Terrifier 2. So
Yeah, see, I was just thinking the same thing. I like how this was scaring people so much back in 1931. You're like, you look at it now and you're like, all right, yeah, cool. It's a creature feature. It's whatever. And then you look at what happened just a couple of years ago and you're like, yeah, there's this one moment where this guy skins a girl and then puts salt on bleach on her and like people were puking and you're like, yeah, times have fucking changed.
Well, again, we'll get to this episode eventually, but if you cut just 6 years earlier when people saw the Phantom of the Opera for the very first time,
yeah,
that in itself is it's different. It's something people were not expecting for the day and age. And all of a sudden they're like, what is this? Like, what is makeup? What is real life? And you give Lon Chaney Sr. anything to make his own makeup, and that man will come up with anything. But
yeah, and that's
I digress.
The thing of I'll say the difference too though is like even now, the Phantom of the Opera, that makeup is pretty creepy. Like even now, if the movie came out now and that's what was revealed on screen, like people would be like, "Oh, that's kind of fucked up."
Yeah.
Versus the monster and Frankenstein, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, it's a creature. Like that's.
I'll say it now just in case when we record the Phantom, which at this point I don't know when will be. But the Phantom makeup was based on World War I victims that would lose like parts of their face or have it be damaged in like mustard gas and shit like that. So they'd have to wear the like fake faces to at least make them seem human and regular and not fucked up due to war.
Dude, that is fucked.
If you look at some of the like pictures of soldiers doing that in like World War I, it's haunting, first off. Second, it's Phantom. You see it and you go, shit, that's where the Phantom got it.
Good Lord. Well, I learned something new today.
That makes the two of us.
Dude, I feel like I learn something new every time we do one of these Universal monster movies from you. I wish there was way more so we could just always do this. Like I wish there were like thousands of these movies so I would just learn something new and cool every single time.
I mean, I have the complete box set, so that's like 40-something movies right there.
Season 4, we're just going to go and just do all of the sequels. Universal Monsters, The Squeakquel, Season 4.
The Squeakquel.
That's right, I said it. I'm not ashamed.
You should be. Anyway, we start the movie with a funeral scene. It's very dark. It's very depressing. Again, the whole Universal backlot and the like mountains and whatever they can make out of this whole backlot area soundstage. This is very clearly in a soundstage. A lot of the outside stuff in this is very clearly in a soundstage because you can hear the echo. I know it's meant to be like a mountain and a canyon, but we know from, time passing, it's just in a soundstage. So the lighting, first off, is very wicked because like everybody's face is dark and you could just see like white outlines around a lot of them. You could barely see any of their faces. And then we just go behind a fence and we see Dwight Fry from Renfield in Dracula now is Fritz in Frankenstein. I know a lot of people would go, but what about Igor? No. This is Fritz. Yes. Igor comes later in Son of Frankenstein, played by Bela Lugosi. Yeah. Anyway. And Colin Clive is like right behind him. Colin Clive is an Englishman who is actually, if we go back in our episodes but forward in time, was considered for the role of the Invisible Man. And
no shit.
Yep, he was one of the people who was possibly considered as the Invisible Man. And a lot of people, because I'm pretty sure it was also Karloff, I think, was also considered, if I remember correctly. But people wanted face to be seen.
Yeah.
But this was all about voice in the Invisible Man. We're going to, funny enough, both James Whale movies, but Colin Clive, I have a note later, I think he could have done a tremendous Invisible Man. It would not come anywhere near Claude Rains, but when you hear him like start getting all angry and like the ultraviolet ray, really? Oh, you bitch. There, I've discovered something more than the ultraviolet ray, and he starts getting more and more unhinged. I'm like, I could see this as an Invisible Man. So Colin Clive, you'd be my runner-up for the Invisible Man. Sorry, Vincent Price, but I feel like Colin Clive pulls a bit more unhinged than you.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, but Claude Rains, it's that voice, dude. There's no replacing that. It's the best. Yep. His crazy is fucking crazy.
So the funeral happens, then the gravedigger comes out, starts burying the body. We get a quick little time lapse, lights up his pipe and walks away. And here comes Colin Clive and Fritz to, I keep calling him Colin Clive, Henry Frankenstein. Colin Clive and Fritz. They come out and immediately undo all of his work. But they've been sitting back behind a fence for at least an hour in the grand scheme of things, and then just come out and just go, nah, fuck your dirt. It's great.
Fuck your dirt.
Fuck your dirt. So they take the coffin out, and Henry Frankenstein is just like, it's not dead. It's just dormant, waiting for new life to be breathed into it. And they take it with them on their little cart, and they go up a hill, and they see a hanged man. And Fritz goes, see? It's still here. Would it have gotten up and fucking walked anywhere, Fritz?
Maybe.
Maybe. Oh, God damn it. Get me down. So Fritz goes up, cuts him down, and Frankenstein
announces that he's coming down too. Sorry, I know I keep interjecting, but it's such a random. He goes up there and he's like, "I'm coming down." We're like, "We don't care. Like, just show up."
It was like Renfield. Fuck. It was like Dwight Fry was trying to get more dialogue in this movie. Here he comes. Here's the knife. I'm coming down now. Well, is it okay? Dwight, please.
Shut the fuck up. I'm coming down now. Like, all right, cool, bro.
Yeah, cool, whatever. Like, love Dwight Fry, but it was also just like, all right, hang on. Let another actor have a line of dialogue, why won't you? So, we cut over to, I wrote the name down because looking at the spelling, and I'm pretty sure it's like Austrian/German, the Goldstadt, Gold, S-T-A-D-T. Cut to the Goldstadt Medical College, where Edward Van Sloan is giving a lecture on the differences between the human brain. There's also a skeleton which bobs up and down, which everybody finds hilarious.
Yeah.
But he's talking about the human brain, and it's like, this is a normal brain. Everything's perfectly fine. This is an abnormal brain. Look at this shit. Basically, the brain of a crazy person who was a murderer and so on and so forth, just basically unhinged, broken. You don't want this brain. Class dismissed. Come up here, observe the brains if you want to. Nobody fucking observes the brains.
No.
They all leave. It's like, hey, they'll be here for... okay, bye, guys. Yep. All right, sick. So Dwight Fry is hanging out in the window just watching, and then climbs in through the window, comes down, grabs the normal brain, decides not to go out the same window that he came through, and then he also gets scared by the skeleton. But then there's a gong noise, which I honestly, my brain and my headcanon wants to say, that's the bell? Like, hey, that's when you should go to a different class. But he dismissed them on their own, so maybe it was just a couple minutes early. Either way, the gong noise scares Fritz. He drops the brain and goes back and just grabs the abnormal brain, which he knew what he did. Motherfucker knew what he did. And this is when he decides to go back out the window. So what his plan was with the normal brain, walk down the hall, excuse me, pardon me, just take this to clean, to dust this brain. And now he climbs back out the window and goes back to the tower, to the little hidden away place that they're at. We cut to a picture of Henry Frankenstein, and we meet Elizabeth, who's just so worried about her fiancé. She's like, well, I haven't heard from him. I haven't seen him in a while. And in comes the Kemp of this story. Again, if you listen back to our Invisible Man episode, Kemp is basically, he worked with Dr. Griffin, but is mad crushing on his girl. So here comes Victor, Henry's cousin, and is just hitting on Elizabeth, going like, oh yeah, I mean, I saw him a few weeks ago alone in the woods. What the fuck were you doing alone in the woods too, Victor? Don't make the seem all about Henry. Why were you alone in the woods? Either way, he's like, yeah, he just stared at me. Basically looked straight through me like I was nothing. So he's losing it. Don't worry about him. He's going crazy. And she goes, oh, well, thank you, Victor. I'm very happy that you're, here for me. And he goes, I'm awfully fond of you. And she goes, oh, I'm awfully fond of you too. And he goes, I wish you were, or wish you weren't. It's like, oh, buddy, she's engaged to your cousin. Stop. So that's when she leaves and follows him to go meet Dr. Waldman, or spelt Dr. Waldman. It's spelt with a W, but they call him Dr. Waldman this whole time.
Yeah.
Again, the whole accent and language of a different country, but it's like, when I wrote this down, I was like, I don't know how to fucking spell his name.
They're German, correct? That's what they're supposed to be, because there's...
I believe it's like German, Austrian, something in that region.
Yeah, because there's Burgermeister and there's a Baron, and it gets Burgermeister.
Burgermeister Meisterburger?
Yeah. See, there you go. Good references.
I understood. Don't you worry. So Elizabeth goes with Victor, and they go to meet Dr. Waldman, who starts explaining that Henry was a great student. He was very bright, and unfortunately, he just left because he wanted more experiments. And they go, well, I mean, what's the experiments of dogs and a couple, rats and things like that? It's like, no. He wanted to experiment with human life. He asked us to get bodies. Don't care how you get them. Just get me human bodies, which, red flag. But coming back around in a few minutes, I'm on Henry's side. I'll explain when we get there. I will explain when we get there. So we cut to the tower where Fritz and Henry are the entire time. Fritz is on the roof, and this is one of the funniest moments that I actually had to stop and just laugh at. It's not funny in any way, shape, or form, and you might not have seen the same thing. But Henry just looks up at the opening in the ceiling and goes, Fritz! And then Fritz just pops in and goes, hello! It's just like... I was like, yes? You asked for me? Hello! Yes, we know you're there, Fritz. God damn it.
You rang.
Yes. Fritz comes down, and they're getting ready for the storm, which is coming in. The lightning strikes and scares Fritz when he comes down the whole rope contraption that they have. And Henry looks at him and goes, oh, if this storm is as I hoped, you'll have plenty to be afraid of before the night's over. So he's already been planning what's happening, obviously, but Henry is seeing himself as a possible god if this goes according to plan. He's saying, you'll have plenty to be afraid of, as in me, motherfucker. Be afraid of me. Because, again, he thinks everything's going to go perfectly fine with this experiment. He doesn't know that Fritz fucked up with the brain. Yet. So, the storm is moving in, and then there's knocking on the door. They hear banging on the door, and he sends Fritz down. Fritz opens it up, and it's Dr. Waldman, it's Victor, and it's Elizabeth. They're all out in the storm, and just hammering on the door, and he takes his sweet time to go down the stairs, and then come back up the stairs. He stops to fix his sock on the bottom of the stairs.
Dude, and this is not the last time that somebody's knocking at a door and they take their fucking time. And it drives me nuts. Every time. Answer the door.
We're going to see kind of the opposite in a few moments. Well, not in a few moments, but in a few minutes with Baron Frankenstein when we meet him. He'll knock on the front door and it's immediately just knock, knock, knock. Well, nobody's home. What the fuck?
Yeah.
I imagine they probably, for filming reasons, it was like, okay, a couple moments have passed and nobody showed up at the door. But it was just, for editing reasons, it was all of a sudden just knock, knock, knock. Nobody's home! What the fuck?
Castles are huge.
Yeah. So Fritz comes back upstairs and Henry looks out the window, and I love the moment that you can see for, visual representation. This is not going to go well. But, who is it? What do you want? And then they go, it's Elizabeth, let us in. And you see him go, ruh-oh, with his little arms raised, just like, oh shit. So he scoots downstairs, lets them in, and Waldman and Victor basically make themselves at home. Elizabeth goes up and starts pleading to her fiance, like, come back, please come back. I don't care what it is, just come back. I love you, I miss you. And he goes, it's of utmost importance that I'm not disrupted. Please, just go away. He's being...
Kindly fuck off.
Again, this is where it's going to sound weird. I start to side with Henry. Because he's a man who's on the brink of a scientific breakthrough. Mm-hmm. He's just a scientist. He's put so much time into this where, yes, is he a little slightly dedicated to his work more than he should be? Absolutely. Some people might call that unhinged. Some people in a few moments, Victor, might call it crazy. Either way, he's like, please go. You'll ruin everything. Yes, is he very blunt? Absolutely. And this is when Victor, big cock of the walk, walks in and goes, Henry, you're inhuman. You're crazy. And it's like, motherfucker, that's my fiance, first off. And this is where you see Colin Clive's face just drop and go, crazy.
I'll show you fucking crazy.
And basically, and brings them upstairs and just locks the door and goes, I have had to take unnecessary precautions here, or unusual precautions. And Waldman just walks into the lab. Victor and Elizabeth are standing off to the side because he looks at them very calmly and just goes, "Please sit down." And then Victor doesn't move, so he straightens up and goes, "Sit down!" And so he sits, and it's like, motherfucker, this is my house.
Yeah.
You are doing shit in my workplace. You listen to me. And then he goes up to Elizabeth and goes, "Please sit down. Thank you."
The way he demands for him to sit down, no matter how many times I watch this movie, I always get that, like, child in trouble feeling in my stomach. I'm like, eee. Like, what?
Yep.
I did something wrong.
Yep.
Every single time. He's so, like, he's
Colin
powerful.
Clive would have made a fantastic Invisible Man. If Claude Rains said no, Colin Clive.
Yeah.
Think of a different universe we would be in if Colin Clive was the Invisible Man and Claude Rains was not. Sad, because Claude Rains is fantastic. I think Colin Clive would have done great. Now, I'm going to bring you into a different what-if universe in a second. As we know, the normal brain is shattered on the floor of the Goldstadt Medical College. The abnormal brain. What if Fritz took the normal brain and went straight out the fucking window? What if the monster had the normal brain?
Right.
I'll let you ponder on that. We'll get to that moment in a few.
I think about it all the time, every single time.
So this is where Henry starts explaining to Waldman, because Waldman goes over and it's like, starts touching the body, and he goes, no. Go sit down. You go sit down. This is my fucking place of work. You're all sitting here thinking I'm crazy. You remember when you taught me that the violet ray and the ultraviolet ray were the brightest and the, most important lights and rays in the world? Well, I've discovered the light that brought life into existence. And then Waldman goes, "Well, where's your proof?" And he goes, "Right there on that fucking table. I'm going to bring life to a dead body." And Waldman goes, "Dead body? Okay, so one that was just previously dead." And he goes, No. That thing has never lived. I pieced it together myself from bodies of graves that I have robbed. Bodies that I have gotten from anywhere. And this is where Waldman, Edward Van Sloan, a distinguished actor, actually puts on the face of fear. They all do when lightning starts striking. They all put on a wonderful performance of just, "I don't know what's going on!" Ah! But the best light show in 1931 happens. Oh, yeah, there was a line before this where he brings everybody up to go look at the body. And Henry goes, "One man crazy, 3 very sane spectators." And Fritz is looking at him, just smiling like, "Yeah, tell him, motherfucker. You tell him." We see the lightning start to flash, and we see the infamous Frankenstein lightning birth laboratory scene, which Ken Strickfaden of Santa Monica built all the equipment that sparked and zapped in the laboratory, and he leased it to Universal for $10,000, which was a staggering sum at the time.
That's huge.
Yeah, for 1931, $10,000, fucking massive. Nowadays, you lease shit like that to a company for easily over hundreds of thousands of dollars. It depends on the size of the project. If they did a Frankenstein remake, hell, it would probably all be CG, which would cost equally as much.
And it would be garbage.
Yep. But all the stuff that was sparking Ken Strickfaden, thank you. You've helped create an infamous scene. So they raise the body up, struck by lightning. All we see is the underside of it getting struck by lightning, which honestly, my brain works with Bride of Frankenstein in this way, which, stay tuned, just saying. Bride of Frankenstein and Frankenstein, the lightning scenes, the laboratory, the resurrection, bringing life, whatever you want to call it, scenes, blend together in my mind. I hear the music from Bride of Frankenstein playing for when Frankenstein gets zapped by lightning. Just the... And I'm expecting to just see overhead shots of lightning, but that's all in Bride of Frankenstein. It's all 4 years later when the music budget goes up, which there's no music except for the very beginning, the very end, and the party festival in the town throughout this whole movie. So very close to Dracula, but there's a lot more going on in this movie that requires sound than what Dracula had. We'll get to that. So descending body comes down, and we see Boris Karloff's arm finally start to raise. And this is where this is where they got censored, In the initial release of this movie, the back part of this line is cut out. Colin Clive, in the most infamous of dialogue lines in a monster movie ever, I will say comfortably, starts going, "It's alive. It's alive. It's alive. It's alive." And you see him start freaking out and have to be held back. And he goes, "In the name of God, now I know what it feels like to be God." For 1931, people going, "You think you're God? No. Take that out of the movie." We don't see that as shit nowadays, but they basically just went, whoa. That's where they got censored in this movie, was through just saying, "No, you're not God. Not God at all." And going back in time, I forgot to mention this at the very beginning, but when they start digging up the body, did you notice the Grim Reaper statue in the background? And how Colin Clive takes a shovel full of dirt
and yeets it at it,
hucks it in the face of death. Basically just laughing like, "Oh, death, oh, you mean nothing to me."
Yeah, it's every time I watch this movie and I see that, you see it during the funeral, yep. And then you see it full body afterwards. But once you see it full body afterwards, my mind immediately goes to the Misfits song, Skull. I immediately start, your skull. I want every single time. Skull. So just imagine interposing that song over this scene. Just be the best thing ever.
I will say that both of the Frankenstein movies, the Frankenstein and the Bride of Frankenstein that come out are both very underlying in themes, where it's like laughing in the face of death, just spitting in his face, throwing dirt in him. And then Bride of Frankenstein is just pure religion. Pure, like, God, Jesus, the whole shebang. Especially the motherfucking monster's crucified.
Yeah, that's true.
And there's like Ave Maria is being played in the... We'll get there when we talk about Bride of Frankenstein. Anyway, Henry is basically held back, and then the whole censorship happens. We cut to Baron Frankenstein, who is just a curmudgeon-y old man. Just doesn't give a shit. He's like, "Where's my son? Well, he's got a beautiful wife here. Why doesn't he come down here, get married?" And they're just like, "Well, he can't be disturbed." And he goes, "Oh, yes, I know what's up. There's another woman, isn't there?" And they both look down, and it's like, "No, that's not it. That's not it. Trust me." And then this is where we're introduced to... I see him as, honestly, his, like, curmudgeon-y old man, bitter rival.
Yeah, Burgermeister.
Because the Burgermeister walks in. Go on.
Before Burgermeister even shows up, the Baron's just like, "You all think I'm crazy." And I'm like...
Crazy?
Yeah. I look at him and I'm like, "Sir, yes, everyone thinks you're crazy. Look at the fucking hat you're wearing and that obnoxious pipe. That thing is, he struggles to hold that pipe."
It looks like a fucking clarinet. A saxophone clarinet.
It does, but he struggles to hold it upright the entire scene. Every time I watch him, he's like, "Whoa." It like keeps like flopping to one side or the other. It's just like, get a normal sized pipe and lose that ridiculous hat. You look crazy. You look crazy. Like, yeah, of course people think you're crazy. Look at the way you look.
I'll do what I want.
Then Burgermeister Meisterburger shows up.
Yeah. Burgermeister shows up asking, "Hey, when's the wedding going to be? We've prepared the village." And the Baron goes,
"Well, there's going to be no wedding."
He's like, whoa. There must be a wedding. Of course, beautiful bride right here. And he goes, "Well, I'm going to take care of my son, but you can leave." Basically just shoves him out the door. And the Burgermeister goes, "Good day, Baron." And he goes,
"And good riddance to you."
Again, curmudgeon-y old man, bitter rival here. It's hilarious to me. The Baron goes, "I'm going to go visit him myself. You know what? I'm going to take care of this. We're not going to worry about it," and just storms off. And we cut back to the tower where Henry is smoking a cigar, just very, happy with himself. I've done what I tried to do. I'm going to relax. And Waldman in the background is pacing vigorously, freaking the fuck out. Waldman says he needs to be kept under guard, that creation of yours. And Henry is just explaining, "Well, I've done all this scientific experiment. I've done all the work. And this is where people would start to see people as crazy. Good. Let them look at me as crazy. But if I'm discovering shit, I know what's up." And Waldman goes, "But the monster and the brain." And he goes, "Well, you should know about the brain. It came from your own college." And Waldman just drops the knowledge bomb of, the brain stolen from my institute was that of a killer, of a crazed man. It's an abnormal, inhuman brain. And you see Henry go, well, it's only a few days old. It'll be fine. Don't worry about it. Listen, he's been kept in complete darkness. Wait until I bring him into the light. This, again, siding with Henry Frankenstein for the first part of this. Now, in this portion of Henry Frankenstein, just wants to see his experiment thrive, but also is more diminutive power over him. Mm-hmm. Again, he's been kept in complete darkness. He's been down, he's been in the tower, he's been in the dungeon, and he hasn't seen the sunlight. So this is where we hear the thudding footsteps outside the door, and one of the most infamous reveals of all time. This movie is just tremendous with everything. Again, Dracula. When people think of Dracula and vampires, they think of Bela Lugosi. When they think of the Wolfman, all the stereotypes, silver, full moon, that all comes from the Wolfman. Frankenstein monster, the flat top, the neck bolts, all that comes from this movie. So, the door opens and we see a back-facing monster. And it backs in and silently, slowly turns around, and we see the infamous makeup by Jack Pierce, who at this point has done Dracula and the Frankenstein monster. He's going to do Bride. He's going to do Wolfman. Jack Pierce was the go-to guy before Bud Westmore and team took over. Jack Pierce individually pieced things together over hours. Mm-hmm. So all this makeup thanks to Jack Pierce. So we see the makeup by Jack Pierce, and people in the theaters were hiding under their seats. There were kids watching this movie and were ducking under their seats. Again, I hate to keep bringing him up because he's been creepy, but Ray Bradbury went to go see this movie with his older brother, and they walked home in the nighttime through like a park, and his older brother ran ahead, hid under a bridge, and Ray walked over the bridge and he jumped out pretending to be the monster, and his brother got grounded so fucking hard. It's hilarious.
But obviously this answers my question, because I wrote in here, and every time I'm like, who walks through a doorway backwards? Like, I get it's an abnormal brain. So, you know, initially your first handful of watches of this, you're just like, well, his brain's broken, so he doesn't know how to walk through doors.
Also at this point, the monster was brought to life a few short days ago. So he is, this entire thing, he's a child. It is a child fresh to the world, only a few days old for this entire movie.
Yeah, but now knowing that his makeup had been a secret, it's a reveal. Was he revealing his look not just to the camera, but to the cast in that moment? Because that would be awesome if that's why they did that.
I believe that the only people that had seen it up to that point were James Whale, Jack Pierce, and Boris Karloff. To my knowledge, I don't know if it was a reveal to everybody, but to my knowledge, obviously James Whale had to be like, yep, and Jack Pierce, the guy who made it, and then Boris Karloff, the guy wearing it. And there's a lot of shit in this makeup that we just don't really think of. Like, there is a massive amount of putty on one of his eyes that makes his eyelid super duper heavy and just like thick and weigh it down a little more. Boris Karloff actually had I don't remember what it's called, I think it was a bridge in his teeth that he took out to give him that sunken cheek look.
Huh.
Yep. And he had, I believe it was like 20 or 30 pound boots, which basically gave him that shuffling thing. And he was wearing leg braces to help him keep that rigidity in his legs.
Yeah, I knew all of that about the boots and the legs, because that was like, it seems crazy and like almost like overkill. Like, you could walk that way normally, like, you know what I mean? Like, you could make yourself do it, but it just adds to it knowing that he was not comfortable.
Yeah.
You're playing this role and you're uncomfortable the entire time. It makes it so much better.
Oh, you don't even know about the uncomfortability of Boris Karloff in this movie. You probably do. I don't know if anybody listening knows.
Listeners.
when we get to later in the movie, there is a massive secret which basically follows Boris Karloff for the rest of his life. When we get there, Boris comes in and Colin Clive has him sit down. And it's, again, child, brand new, couple days old. And he goes, sit down. And he sits in a chair. And he goes, see, he's understanding. Watch, I'm going to open up the roof, and we see sunlight creep across the monster. And usually when I watch this movie, I just go, yeah, okay, it's Frankenstein. I know him. Boris Karloff's there. And I'm watching this, and all of a sudden I got lost in the mixture of Boris Karloff and the monster. And I was like, he's looking up and feeling the warmth of sun for the very first time. He's seeing sunlight. He's seeing light come from anywhere that's not a torch or residual from a window somewhere. And he's just looking up going, this is the most beautiful thing I've ever felt.
Yeah.
And then they shut it, and he comes down and goes, oh. Colin Clive tells him to sit again, and he sits, and he puts out his hands, and you hear the little, basically like, where did the fucking sun go, man?
Make it come back. Yeah, I've always looked at it a few different ways, which was like the beauty of seeing something like that for the first time, but it's also going back to, like, this is pseudo-religious in a way. Like, he's worshiping the sun. Like, imagine a caveman witnessing the sun for the first time. It's definitely one of those moments where he's worshiping, or he's in awe of something he's unaware of. I mean, he was created in part by lightning, something that came from the sky.
Yep, came from the gods, came from the heavens.
See, yeah, exactly. And now this one is like, this is the opposite side of a storm. The storm is dark, it's dreary, it can be scary, and now the sun is out, and he's just like, but look at this beauty that the sky also holds. And he's like, that's where I came from. This is my birthplace. And it's just, there's so much you could just dive deep into this one single moment in this movie. And at the end of the day, I think there's no argument. It's just a beautiful scene. It's amazing. But
And immediately to be undone, because here comes Fritz, freaking the fuck out, like, it's escaped! Where is it? Comes in with a torch and starts shaking it in the face of this brand new creation. Again, a couple days old, child. Frankenstein is a child, the monster.
yeah.
And he starts freaking out, shaking a torch in his face. Henry's like, get the fuck away, dude. Leave him be. And he goes around and comes back again with the torch like, get you, gotta get you. This is where the monster freaks out and starts lashing out, hitting everybody, pushing everybody. Edward Van Sloan, Dr. Waldman, clocks him in the back of the head with like a club, and he drops to the ground. All the Frankenstein noises of basically sounding like he's unwinding a chainsaw. And they get him subdued, they get him tied up, and they get him down to the dungeon, chained to the wall, where he's just freaking out because he can see his shadow from sunlight coming through, and he's staring at a shadow, and he's like, why is this thing doing the same thing I'm doing? What the fuck? And here comes Fritz crashing in with a whip and another torch.
Yeah.
And he starts thrashing at him like, shut up! Shut the fuck up! So Henry comes in and goes, Fritz, leave him alone. Please just leave him alone. And takes off. Fritz then shakes the torch in his face, which Boris Karloff is getting a torch dangerously close to his face in this movie. Several times.
Yeah.
Like, the fear looks real. Because it's just a man going, stop, what? Ah! Ah!
Yeah.
And, like, this, I mean, I know he probably obviously wasn't screaming like that, but the monster itself, putting it on the voice of it, was screaming like that. And it's a tremendous portrayal of just actual fear.
Yeah.
Boris Karloff, tremendous actor, folks. We cut away to Henry and Dr. Waldman upstairs reading books, and we just hear screams through the tower. So there's screams throughout the tower. Fritz is crying and screaming, and Henry and Waldman run downstairs to the dungeon, where all of a sudden Fritz is somehow hanged. The monster found out how to take the noose, or not the noose, to take the whip, fashion it into a noose, basically tie it around his neck and string him over one of the rafters. And they walk in just dead stop of, what the fuck? The monster turns around pissed off, obviously, because all Fritz has done is torture the thing for days.
Fritz is the real monster in this movie, by the way.
Yep. So
he had the shit coming.
Yeah. So Fritz is dead. Dwight Frye, once again, dead in a Universal monster movie because he's helpful for a little bit, and then all of a sudden he dies. The only movie which he does not die as a side character, the Invisible Man. As far as we know in the Rampage. He could have been one of the people thrown over the hill. So Waldman and Henry leave, and he goes, well, he always hated Fritz. He just kept tormenting him. And Waldman's like, we need to destroy this fucking thing. Go upstairs, get the solution. I'm going to stay down here because that door is not going to hold. And he goes upstairs, comes back down with like a sedative, and he goes, it's very strong. Waldman says, I'll hide back here. You draw him over there with the torch. As soon as he goes over, I'll stab him. So they open the door. Monster walks out, goes for the torch, and Waldman stabs him. And again, this is where we hear the knocks him down, and then starts to fight with Henry, knocks the torch out of his hand, and starts to strangle him. That's when, luckily, the sedative kicks in, and the monster basically gets all fucking can't see anything, all dizzy, all fuzzy, all blind, and collapses. Henry gets up, checks on Waldman, hears knocking on the door, which, what a great time.
And he takes his damn time to get to the fucking door again.
And opens the door. It's Victor basically being like, Elizabeth and your dad are coming up the hill. What the fuck is that? So Victor helps Henry and Waldman get the monster back into the thing. And Henry goes upstairs and Waldman goes, you better wipe that blood off your face, dude. Goes upstairs. He's in like a tattered shirt at this point. So Henry goes upstairs to clean the blood off his face, and Victor and Waldman are downstairs taking care of the monster. Waldman's now in the dungeon, and Victor opens the door, but not before, again, the Baron comes up and goes,
Where's that the front door? Well, I guess I'll go knock on it.
and knocks, and then goes, well, nobody's here. Bro, give it a few moments. He knocks again, starts raking his cane on it, like, come on, somebody open the door. That's when Victor opens the door and Baron comes in. There's a torch on the ground. Goes, what is this place? Trying to burn it down?
I don't blame you.
Comes in, meets Dr. Waldman, and Waldman goes, take your son the fuck away from here, dude. And he goes, well, that's the whole reason I'm here. What do you think? Goes upstairs, opens the door, and Henry sees Elizabeth and faints. Just passes out because the man has been through a great deal of trauma, let alone being strangled by his own creation. But the weight of this whole situation just comes crashing down in that moment. And Henry faints. They give him brandy to bring him back because, 30s. And goes, I'm going to take you away from here. And Waldman goes, I will document and record everything about this discovery, but I will see that it is painlessly destroyed. So we cut to a little bit in the future when the monster is on the table and Waldman is recording everything, saying, it's great, it's fantastic, but it's going to be immediately dissected. And we see the eyes start to flutter as the monster starts to regain consciousness. And Waldman goes back and starts listening for something, probably a heartbeat. And the monster's hand comes up, grabs the back of Waldman, and starts to strangle him. It fades away, so Lord knows it probably went on for longer enough to strangle the man to death. But the monster comes stumbling down the stairs, starts walking, sees the dungeon, and groans at it like, I hate that place. Opens the door and flees into the countryside. So now the monster is loose. We cut to Henry and Elizabeth in their garden, making wedding plans. I'm so happy to see you. Being with you is like heaven. We cut to orange blossoms being worn in their family for 3 generations. And goes, this one's for you. This one's to make the best man Victor look even still better. If you only knew that Victor was trying to steal your girl. Anyway, he starts talking about, again, these orange blossoms worn for 3 generations, this ring of orange blossoms I placed on my wife's head, and hopefully today you'll be placing them on Elizabeth's head. They toast, and they say something which I love the look on Henry Frankenstein's face for this is, a son to the house of Frankenstein. And they cut to his face, and he's like, oh, they don't know. Yeah. Basically, Henry has already made himself a son in just a very terrifying monster form. They toast to the son to the house of Frankenstein. And we cut away to, honestly, watching it back, it's been sad this whole time. This is still one of the most sad scenes.
Before we cut away, I've got to bring it up because it gets brought up twice in this movie. The fuck's the deal with the bottle of wine?
It's his great-grandmother's, so it's been...
I get it.
Yeah.
But why? My mother kept it away from my grandmother kept it away from my grandfather. This is like, okay, it gets brought up at the end of the movie too. They're like, well, it's a good thing they kept it. My grandmother kept it away from my grandfather, or my mother kept it away from my father, or whatever it was. But it's just like, is there a joke here that I'm missing? Because everyone keeps laughing. It's not fucking funny. Like, it's just stupid. Like, why is this a funny bit? Yeah. Why is this a bit they thought was necessary? They were like, oh, it'd be really funny. Let's make one of his past relatives an alcoholic.
I mean, again, all of James Whale's movies have a underlying tone of comedy. The Invisible Man. The Bride of Frankenstein is arguably it's a comedy. Yes, absolutely.
There's no argument. The Bride of Frankenstein is a fucking comedy.
I think that's when James Whale really started hitting his stride, because he just did Frankenstein, and he's like, okay, we can get away with a little bit. Invisible Man kicked in, he's like, oh, we could do anything. And Bride of Frankenstein was like, fucking domino, motherfucker.
Yeah, it's a full-blown comedy. Like, when you and I went and saw it, at the end of it, I was just like, I never really realized, but Bride of Frankenstein's a fucking comedy. Like, this is full-blown a comedy. It's great. It's fantastic.
Yeah. So a lot of there's just unnecessary underlying comedy bits, like the whole skeleton bouncing up in the background, Son to the House of Frankenstein, the whole thing at the end where he's just like, well, he's not going to need it, I'll take it. Or like the whole, give the servants champagne, this stuff's wasted on them. Yeah. But we cut to, again, one of the arguably most sad, depressing scenes in this movie, let alone all of the Universal monsters. We see Ludwig and his daughter Maria with a little kitten, and goes, I'm going to go get some stuff from town. I'll be right back, and we'll go to the festival. And little Maria stays with the kitty. She goes over to the lakefront, which I think, did you send me? It was either you or Dominique sent me a picture of that scene, and then the actual location with the mountains in the background, just like, this is the place. Then it must have been Dominique. Just like, this is the actual location they filmed that at, because here's where the mountains line up. I was like, fuck it, cool. We're putting that in our travel dossier. So the monster comes out of the woods, and Maria, the little girl, just looks up, kind of scared and worried. And the monster goes up and she goes, what's your name? I'm Maria. Will you be my friend? And the monster is a few days old, child, and goes over and just like very childlike, she goes, I'm making a boat. And he grabs her hand and looks, and it's like, your hand is different than my hand. This is weird. And then she starts throwing flower petals into the water, and she gives him some flowers. He starts making flower boats as well. He runs out of flowers, and he goes, you'll float. Picks her up. She screams, stop, you're hurting me. He throws her into the water, hoping she'll float. Maria doesn't know how to swim, and Maria then drowns in the water. And you can see the legit panic on this monster's face of, I've done something wrong. Oh my God, I've done something wrong. And he runs in fear. Now, to bring levity to this situation, the actress that played Maria and Boris Karloff got along swimmingly. They were like,
pun intended?
Oh, fuck. There's the levity in the situation. Good night, everybody.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Spoiler Sleepover.
Fuck.
Continue. You didn't do that on purpose.
No, I did not, and I hated it. I hate puns. So Maria and Boris got along very, very well. Like, yes, I see the sticker. They got along very well. Like Maria asked, will you come have tea with me? While he was in costume. And it was like holding his hand, and he goes, my dear, it would be my honor. And just goes and sits with her and has tea. Like, she didn't want to get into a car and go to set unless Boris was with her.
That's so sweet.
Yep. So this scene, yes, it is all a movie. It is still tragic as a motherfucker. But at the same point, there is a lovely backstory to where everybody is okay in the situation. Because that is terrifying, let alone being the young girl actress, but being the parents of that girl going, one of two things. Yeah, throw our daughter into the water, kill her, whatever, it's fine. Or just, excuse me, you're going to do what? You're going to have like 42 lifeguards on set, right? Good. I'm going to be standing right there, so the moment anything goes wrong, James Whale, I'm going to slap you.
It's a heartbreaking moment too, but not the saddest moment.
No, yep, that comes later. So the monster flees. We cut to the village where everybody's partying, everybody's drinking, everybody's singing, dancing, having fun. And they're like, oh, look at them out there. Blah, 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 blah. And the Baron's called out to make a little speech to everybody. Elizabeth comes in and goes, Henry, come talk to me right now. It's like, we're not supposed to see the bride before the wedding, blah, blah, blah. Like, all the bridesmaids, they walk out of the room and they're like, oh, shit, something's wrong. So Elizabeth basically starts going on about how I'm so worried, something's wrong. We haven't heard of Waldman. Where is he? And Henry goes, Waldman's always late. He'll be here. He's not going to miss it. Then we start hearing very furious, rapid knocking on the door. And Elizabeth, in her state, is already worried. She goes, what's that? What's that? Henry goes to the door. Victor goes, it's Waldman. It's Waldman. Henry closes the door and Elizabeth goes, don't leave me here. He goes, no, you stay here. Closes it and locks it. Like, fuck you. Lock. This is where we find out Victor went up to the tower and found out Waldman is dead. And they've heard about the monster in the countryside, ravaging and terrorizing everybody. And then we hear the in the house. In the house? And they go to try and chase because they think he's up in the attic. Then they think he's all the way down in the basement. Where this monster is and how tall this house is, because that main foyer area, those stairs go straight up. And the roofs are huge, or the ceilings are huge. It's a big fucking house. And then we cut to Elizabeth's room again, where she's pacing nervously back and forth. And if I remember correctly, this scene was given inspiration to, or from, and mirrored a scene from the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, where
the best worst movie ever.
Yeah, where the monster creeps in through a window and is just following the damsel. And again, in the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, a very eerily similar scene. But the monster starts following Elizabeth, and I know it's meant to be the monster just makes a noise, but the way he makes the noise, it's like, damn, girl, you look fine in that wedding dress. It's just like, what the fuck?
Did the monsters make a pass at me?
Apparently he must have. The monster's hitting on me. That's when she screams, and Henry's like, he's trying to steal my girl. That's the second guy in this movie. Fuck! So he runs downstairs. They get in. The room's been torn apart. Elizabeth passed out on the bed, all worried. The monster fleed out the window. And this is where we cut to Ludwig carrying Maria through the town. And the look on Ludwig's face is just, my whole life has come crashing down.
It's not just that. This shot is so long, it's so drawn out, and he's walking through a town where the entire time you can hear the wedding bells chiming.
It's in the party. Background. Everybody's happy.
And as he passes through everything, everybody he passes by stops and looks at him in just shock.
You can hear characters screaming, crying. Gasping. He walks past a group of school kids and they all stop and stare, and it's just like, oh, because they're all Maria's size and age.
Yeah. This is the one scene every fucking time I watch it. I have to fight back tears because it's just so well done.
Yeah.
It's so heartbreaking, and they don't do anything to distract from what we're witnessing.
Yeah.
She's still her clothes are still wet. She's just an amazing
and
yeah, she plays dead very well.
Yep.
It's just man, it's such a hard scene. It's heartbreaking. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off on it.
No,
but
you're fine.
The scene is so heavy and it's just so amazingly well shot that it makes you feel every feeling you're supposed to feel.
Yep. And I don't want to say it's immediately undone, but it's kind of like a little bit stamped on when he brings him up to he brings Maria up to the burgomaster, and the burgomaster's like, my poor man, what do you want me to do? It's like, I can't do shit. It's like, motherfucker, she's been murdered.
Yeah. And I mean, that is basically his approach to it also. He's like, she's been murdered. My daughter's been murdered. And he's like, well, I mean, we're already going to fucking get torches and just be an angry mob running and screaming for a solid 10 minutes.
Which, bringing it back, torch budget. Oh!
Yo!
The torch
This has to have
budget.
the highest torch budget.
Oh, God, yeah. Yeah, the torch budget, like earlier when Fritz kicked in the door and just starts shaking a torch, the torch budget was right there. Also, let me bring it back to a couple weeks ago when watching the monster walk in the room with Elizabeth and like kind of follow her and just like, we know what's going to happen because we've seen the movie, but anybody watching it for the first time, it brings me back to watching the creature from the Black Lagoon. Because when Kay is swimming back to the boat, and it's the overbearing music, and the fact that the creature is actively swimming after her, you're sitting there going, something's gonna fucking happen.
Right.
What the hell is gonna? And it's silent in this one, so he's just walking in. We know what the monster's capable of, and Elizabeth, who has no idea what is there, she's never seen the monster, and all of a sudden, bam, he's right there. It's like, I hate this. I fucking hate watching this. My palms are sweaty, dude. My knees are weak and my arms are heavy. I hate it. But we cut back to
that.
You're welcome. So the Burgermaster is like, cool, we're gonna hunt the monster down. I swear to you all. And this is where we cut back. Henry checks on Elizabeth and then has to go lead a group. So he goes, Victor, whatever happens to her, I place her in your care. Do you understand me? Your care. Which at that point feels like something should have happened or could have happened, but basically Victor was sitting there perfectly fine. He had nothing to worry about. But it's like, if the monster came back and something happened to Elizabeth, that's Victor's fault. But nothing did.
Yeah.
So Ludwig leads a group, the father. The Burgermaster leads a group, and then Henry leads a group. They all light up their torches, and the torch budget goes through the roof. And they start parading through the city, dogs a barking, everybody like poking their heads out the windows, kids being held back. Like a kid started running towards the group and the mom's like, get the fuck back here. So they go out to a crossing and Ludwig went down to the marsh. The Burgermaster was taking the lakes and the Frankenstein was taking the mountains. So he starts directing everybody like, Ludwig, that way! Frankenstein, that way! Everybody else to the lakes with me! And they all take off and you see the Burgermaster just like, wait up, guys! Wait, hang on! Just chasing after them with the torch. Again, torch budget is fantastic because we're seeing a lot of torch scenes, people in boats and on the side of the lake combing through. We cut to the mountains on the soundstage again. Everybody's running through. And the directions are very vague. Because when Frankenstein's like, you group, there. It's like, fucking where, dude? He starts leading the rest of the group. We find there's a guy who has already been attacked by the monster. And we see somehow they got separated. I don't know how. But Henry is off by himself as the rest of the group is climbing the mountain. And he goes, no. Everybody come back. What are you doing? Fuck. All right. So he tries to get higher ground to get their attention, and he climbs up right next to the monster. And I think it might be Bride of Frankenstein. And Henry is up on the mountaintop and just starts screaming for everybody. Turns and he sees the monster who's staring him down. Just like, hi, Dad.
Yep.
You remember me?
So I have a really interesting note. The mountain set, obviously, we're on a soundstage for this mountain. Like it's very obvious at certain moments that it's a painted backdrop.
Yep.
But the stones, the way that they made this mountain, every time I watch this, and this time too, even, I was just like, if you just added some fire and some demons, this would look like hell.
I believe it.
It looks very Dante's Inferno style, the way the rocks are made, which could very well be intentional. Like this could be an intentional choice to be like, this is hell for...
I guarantee these were probably used for another movie because, like, I don't know if it was a hell movie, but, like, if they didn't, missed opportunity. But the fact that these mountains were made for this movie, they are massive and vast. So they could have used them for years.
Yeah, because there's a really cool shot where Dr. Frankenstein's down low and you can see the other guys in the background, like, climbing a mountain. It's just dope because you're like, this is a soundstage. This was all built in 1931. Again, I know I keep bringing up, like, for the time, but, like, for the time, this is dope. It's huge.
Yeah.
It's really cool, but it also could be, should be, maybe already was used as a set for hell of some sort.
Yeah.
The underworld of some sort. It's just, it doesn't look like your stereo. We live in fucking New Hampshire, man. Like we're New Englanders. We've seen mountains. We've hiked mountains. Mountains don't look like this around here, at least. And it's crazy. Anyway, yeah, I just wanted to I needed to say something because I'm like, that's what it looks like. It looks like they're marching through hell.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. It's a very, very interesting choice for the style.
Yeah. So the monster attacks Henry, and I'm shocked, and you can see it happen. The torch gets knocked down, and Henry gets knocked through the torch and kind of sits in the torch for a moment. And fucking tweed suit, how that didn't go up like that, I'll never know. But he gets up, and you can see Colin Clive go, fuck that thing, and he yeets the torch away from him, being like, I want nothing to do with this. And then the monster does like the Captain Kirk just double hand hit, which this is not the first time he does that. He does it in a few moments. But the monster does the Captain Kirk hit, and Colin Clive drops, and this is where everybody is listening, the Burgermaster and Ludwig and a couple people, they hear Henry screaming like, help, help, help. They go, the monster's up there, go get him. So they start chasing. The monster picks up Henry and goes to your local neighborhood windmill, and this is an infamous thing in itself, let alone for the movie, but for the rest of, Frankenstein history. There's always something about a windmill. It was in Van Helsing. So the monster takes Henry into the windmill, where the crowd is literally right behind his back. The whole massive mob is right behind the monster. He closes the door, braces the door, and starts climbing upstairs. This is where Boris Karloff developed back problems for the rest of his life. He had to have several back surgeries and braces and things like that because he kept having to carry Colin Clive up a different ladder. And it wasn't like one take and done. He had to do it several times per ladder to make sure that it was correct. So Boris had, unfortunately, the monster travel with him and follow him for the rest of his life based on this.
Jeez.
Yeah. So they get to the top of the windmill, and everybody's like, grumble, grumble, everybody's up there. And then Henry wakes up, and the monster sees that and starts following after him. We get another William Shatner, Captain Kirk, just double hand hit, miss. And we get to my personal favorite, a beautiful shot of just the spinning thing of the windmill. And it's just Henry watching the monster watching Henry, and then Henry watching the monster, and we just see the it's a tremendous shot. It's very quick, it's very throwaway, but it is
so good.
It's a beautiful shot. And this is where Henry then tries to make it out the door and jump off the railing, but the monster grabs him, pulls him back, basically just starts beating him up, and then throws him off the top of the windmill. And it hits, hang on, I know what you're laughing at, hits the propeller and then drops. And they check on him. Is he okay? He's not making any sound. Bring him back to the village. We'll take care of him later. It's obviously a dummy.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. He's moving. He hits the ground, they roll him over. His arm moves, his hand moves. He lifts his arm. He's alive.
Yeah.
How? How the fuck, dude? He got yeeted into the propeller of the windmill.
Happy endings,
and then
baby.
Slides off and then just eats shit so hard. It's just like, yo, fucking how did you survive? I love the fact that it's a dummy because it's just so noodly, but
it's effective.
Hard.
Oh, you got it.
Yeah. He hits hard, and then they're just like, yeah, bring it back. He'll be fine. You're like, no. He just got thrown off the top of he's dead.
Yep.
Oh, good grief.
The dummy, still to this day, I know it's a dummy, obviously, but it also still, I'm looking past the dummy and just going, damn. Fucking damn. Because, the windmill set alone, but the movie is tremendous, and this is where it ends because they light fire to the windmill, and the flame mask is separate to the windmill. So obviously the windmill's not on fire with Boris Karloff in there.
Right.
But like you can see when it's like, okay, kind of flipping through or glitching through, it's not the same mask. It's okay. The performance at the end of this is very, people look past it. Boris screaming as the monster, again, child, few days old, is screaming in fear of a flaming windmill around him and gets crushed by a beam.
It's such a good contrast to the "Arr!" from that to like an actual it's a high-pitched, blood-curdling, horrified scream of just, man, I'm let's call him 5 days old. So the way that he's aging, because of body and all that stuff, he's aging a year a day. Is basically what it's come down to. So he's 5 years old. So we're watching a 5-year-old fucking burn to death. And it's upsetting. It's horrifying because he's so fucking scared. He made a single mistake because he didn't understand. And everyone was like, burn it. It's heartbreaking, man. This movie is fucking sad. Like, it is a sad movie.
And it ends with a strange chuckle. If you're on the monster side like we are, it's very sad. But if you're a human and not like us, and you just go, oh, thank God, the monster's taken care of, and they come back, it's like, we would think Mr. or Master Frankenstein, Henry, whatever the fuck, would like a glass of his grandmother's wine. And he goes, nah, he doesn't need it. A son to the house of Frankenstein, and drinks it, and that's the end of the movie. And that was 1931's Frankenstein.
Stupid wine. I don't get the joke. It's not funny. It's not a funny joke. It's stupid. They could have written anything else that would have been way better. It's a stupid wine joke.
Before we get to that part, because I already want to get to the rankings, but we do need to crown a bloody legend for this week. And I think there's going to be 3. I would like to give not only Colin Clive, because of his massive, powerful performance and just like how great of an actor he is as Henry Frankenstein, but just like, again, him being considered for the Invisible Man and showing that he has the chops and the prowess to do it. Colin Clive, fantastic. Without fucking say, Boris Karloff as the Frankenstein monster. Again, just like Dracula a few weeks ago, this is the icon. This is the go-to. If you think of Boris Karloff, if you think of the Frankenstein monster, you think of what Boris Karloff looks like. And of course, behind the makeup, Jack Pierce, the man who brought this to life, the man who brought several different iterations of many of our favorite monsters to life, but this most iconic makeup of the Frankenstein monster. The whole movie is tremendous. It's a powerhouse of actors. It's a powerhouse of makeup. It's a powerhouse performance. Frankenstein.
Couldn't agree more.
So
I think that's the most Bloody Legends we've had in an episode.
I believe it is, yeah, because I know for Creature we had 2. I think that's about it. I think everybody else has only been 1, as far as I remember.
Yeah, as far as I remember too. Yeah.
Quick little, before we keep going, as a traveling bitch will, I'm going to bring it back to my trip to England. We went to Guildford and visited the Guildford Crematorium, where Boris Karloff is actually has his cherry blossom tree in the Garden of Remembrance. And I saw the tree, took a nice little picture with it. It's the second monster that I've visited. I've visited Claude Rains in Moltenborough, but getting the ability to fly across the sea to go visit the Frankenstein monster and the mummy, it was beautiful. He's got a very beautiful place that he is right now, and it's fantastic. Now that we've gotten that out of the way, Rob, out of 10 Frankensteins revving a chainsaw, what would you give this movie?
Vocally revving a chainsaw? Well, that's an easy one. That's 10. I fucking love this movie. I really do. It's I'm not a fan of all of the Universal monster movies, obviously. We go back and listen to Dracula. My rating on that one was not good.
You gave it a 14.
Yeah, no, negative 14 is more like it. But No, I love this movie. It's sad. It's a sad movie. But Boris Karloff's God, dude. Like, at the end of the day, it's not Dr. Frankenstein. It's Boris Karloff. He's amazing. I adore this movie. I adore this movie equally as much as I adore The Creature from the Black Lagoon. They're both just fantastic movies. And both released pretty closely together. So, what about you, Jason Michael? How many Frankenstein monsters revving vocal chainsaws do you give it out of 10?
It's gonna sound bad. Similar to Dracula, this one and Dracula, I would give it a 9. He's not my top 3, but he is one of my favorites, and this movie is just tremendous. Again, it's those brief moments of just like, okay, well, that felt unnecessary, where it's like, all right, move on, cool. Like, I was watching it, and all the stuff in the beginning with the monster felt fantastic. As soon as Henry was taken from the tower, and they're like, oh, well, we're talking about a wedding, it's like, I don't have any interest in this. Bring back the monster. That being said, it is still a beautiful, tremendous, powerful movie and completely groundbreaking for its time with all the effects and the lightning and the fact of, like, I'm bringing someone to life, not back from the dead, to life. So it will get a 9 from me. It's a 9 with an asterisk. It's a 10, but it's a 9 because of its, like, all right, cool. A couple little things we could sweep under the rug.
Like the wine joke. That's not a joke. It's just stupid.
Ha! It's hilarious. So, normally, as you all know, at the end of our episodes, we will do thanks. However, as you have seen in our posts on the Instagrams and whatever else we have, we will be doing a double feature.
Yeah.
Because if you are listening to this, you know what also has released on this day, podcast-wise, not in movies. We also released The Bride of Frankenstein, a follow-up 4 years later down the road from 1935. So please, after this, go listen to that, and definitely go check out all of our episodes, especially on the Universal Monsters, and listen to how we've gotten to where we've gotten. Listen to any callbacks, things like that. But thank you very much for listening to our episode on Frankenstein. As we just said, you'll hear us in a few brief moments for Bride of Frankenstein. But Rob,
yes,
until a few moments from now,
nap tightly, suckers.
Burn down the roots!
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Spoiler Sleepover, but the fun doesn't stop there. Go follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Spoiler Sleepover, and be sure to check out our website www.spoilersleepover.com for more. That would be really fantastic of you. So until next time, sleep tight, suckers.
Spoiler Sleepover is sponsored by Vegan Curious, a one-woman owned and operated bakery that's out of this world.
Vegan Curious offers baked goods so delicious even meat eaters from Mars won't know they are cruelty-free. Vegan Curious is based out of Kitchen Local in Amesbury, Mass.
For all inquiries and information, go to vegancuriouskitchen.com and follow Vegan Curious on Instagram and Facebook.